Do you all have a manga that you like a lot, even though you know it's, well, admittedly bad? Well, let me show you mine. I feel like anyone who's a hardcore OG follower of my work before I finally decided to migrate to manga and stay here would assume that people think that my taste in media is super duper pronounced and highbrow and only tolerant of highly intellectual type stuff, right? But I promise you that absolutely is not the case. I've got my own fair share of stuff that I know is dumb, or maybe just brain dead, or maybe just bad, but I still like it. And, well, this is one of these things. I like it a lot, and basically the reason why is because my standards for what I desperately wish for are so damn low that I still like some of it. And the deal is that, boys, I cannot stress this enough. This manga is effing bad. It genuinely is. It is so bad that despite this thing having 10 volumes, I can literally only tolerate reading 3.5 volumes of this shit. So why am I still calling this enjoyable, even though I straight up cannot even tolerate an entire 50% of the series? Well, let's find out now. Boys, this is Kemono Giga, a shonen anthro action manga about an elite squad of societal outcast furries, referred to as Kemono, that have powers and are tasked with stopping crime and saving the populace from certain doom. The entire thing is already finished. In fact, it was back in 2020 after a solid 10-volume run. Written and drawn by Japanese artist Koichi Chikasa, this is his first manga. Well, actually it's not. He actually had like 1 or 2 one-shots he created before testing his mettle, but this right here is his first multiple-volume manga. So, what makes this thing awesome to me? Well, the entire synopsis is that in a chaotic world full of various creatures and species, some of which are exceedingly dangerous by default, humanity and non-human are segregated heavily via 2 different portions of their land. One upper district and one lower one, basically. So humanity can live safely whilst all the other kin can rot in the slums of this world. But amongst the lower district's underbelly lies all of the most deadly threats there is. So deadly in fact that they could mean certain doom for the entire world. Their solution? To create an elite unit of Kemono with extensive combat skills and or innate elemental powers to exterminate the grandest threats posed to the world. The current one being a recently discovered species of plant-like monsters that kill and eat anything called the Makasuhi. Our main character, Yu, who recently discovered he has his own abilities after a tragedy in his family, is introduced to one of these combat units that, by the way, conveniently take the appearance of rival schools because of course they goddamn do, and goes on a grand adventure where he meets new friends and allies, learns more about the crazy world around him, does battle with terrifying monsters, and learns more about the truth of his abilities. Yeah, as you can see, it's about as standard as you could get when it comes to shonen type stuff like this, right? But with a scenario like this, you can still expect neat characters, a cool setting featuring humans and anthros and whatever the heck else our creator Koichi Chikasa had in his head, and awesome action. I said this last video, I'll say it again. Literally the only reason why I identify as a furry is because I absolutely adore that art style. When anthro art is drawn really well and stylishly, it just scratches an itch in my brain that makes me fall in love with it. It's the whole reason why I love Zenless and BNA's aesthetic so much. So it may not shock you to find out that when I find a shonen action furry manga that is absolutely not afraid to get intense, get violent, but also isn't afraid to show off its grounded personalities and urban fantasy aesthetic, I'm freaking excited. I don't know how many of you watched my previous video where I talked about this weird manga called Killing Bites, but I did say that I wanted an action manga with furries in it. And that manga tried to do that, but the problem is that, well, it sucked. For various reasons. But this manga right here rectifies a lot of things that I hated about Killing Bites the most. All anthros are just straight up anthros, and the girls aren't just basic bitch neko waifus. The manga is not afraid to have all of the main characters stuck in dire situations where they get heavily fucked up, which is something the previous manga didn't want to do because it was trying to preserve waifu value. And furthermore, putting Killing Bites aside, Kemono Giga has countless merits of its own artistically, what with its dynamic action scenes and intense combat that, while I will admit the powers that the main cast have are not particularly unique, that doesn't matter when their abilities look this cool and are drawn this goddamn cool. And keep in mind, I'm not just trying to be an adrenaline junkie here. If the manga only had cool action, it'd get pretty boring pretty fast, but that's not all. When you make an action manga, you gotta balance it out with likable characters and an interesting setting, and people you can get behind, right? And somehow somehow this manga just pulls that off with art style alone. It's just the way that Koichi Chikasa goes out of his way to draw their characters' personalities. Not right though. The setting, while it is just a malnourished slum-type aesthetic, is still drawn really well and really does well at making that urban fantasy aesthetic pop, you know what I mean? Like, it just gives me Zenless Zone Zero vibes is what I'm trying to say. Even the one-dimensional ass bad guy monsters are drawn in unique, grotesque, creative ways that display horror to you, the reader, as well as the characters in the comic. Boys, I cannot stress this enough. Artistically, this manga is red wine for my eyeballs. So, what happened? Why does this manga turn out to still completely suck irreversibly, despite it being so aesthetically pleasing to me? Well, it's a whole thing that I need to explain, but if I were to sum it up in one sentence, it would be... just because you're a good artist doesn't mean you're a good writer. Okay, so this manga wants to be dark, as you've seen in quite a few of these shots that I've shown you. Okay, cool, sign me up, I'm down. I love dark stuff. But the problem with dark stuff is that, well, when you want to add darker toned things into your manga, you, as a creator, have to know how to handle it correctly. And remember, Koichi Chikasa, this mangaka, this is this dude's first real multi-volume run for a comic. His previous works were just one-shot type things, right? So, yeah, an author who has limited experience in narrative structure trying to handle something that needs proper tact in order to make for a good scenario, yeah, it's a recipe for disaster. Okay, so I can probably elaborate on this best by putting a spotlight in, like, the middle of Volume 3, I think it was? I don't know. During this moment, one of the weird Makasuhi villain monster things appears from the disguise of a child servant, and in order to take on her appearance, that monster did so by violently murdering said child. The manga itself goes into a very unnecessary graphic description of how said bad guy tortured and killed this child in excessively gruesome fashion and took personal pleasure in doing so. Yes, very shocking, very offensive. Now, usually when you do something like this, especially something this unnecessarily shocking and all that jazz, the purpose is to apply buildup of how much of an unlikable bad guy this is. So when he is defeated, he makes the protagonist look good and strong. Obviously, there are other reasons for as to why you would add shocking content into your manga, but this story right here is super duper shonen coded, so you would figure that would be the reason why. But after this very unnecessarily disturbing moment, that bad guy isn't even defeated by the main characters. He's slain over dramatically by a team of actual, like, not even joking, actual background characters. Destroyed and borderline forgotten about like he was never even there to begin with. Like, what? The main characters didn't even get a chance to barely interact with him. It's the most weird, pointless, anticlimactic resolution to this conflict on planet the fuck Earth, man. Like, say what you want about the most shocking moments of edgelord slop like Attack on Titan, but when stuff like that goes down, it always affects the character's behavior and personalities. Not even that happened over here. The main dude Yu is hung up about it for like one chapter and then they move on. Like, what was even the point of this shit, dude? And guess what? It somehow gets even worse. Okay, so let's say you're someone who found this moment to be very depressing and very horrific despite it being the most embarrassingly poorly handled garbage on Earth. After this very dark moment in the comic, what could possibly happen next chapter? It's time for an anime beach episode! Yeah, that's right, guys. You get to see all your favorite characters in totally hot outfits and looking at the background characters who are totally hot furries and relaxing and shit. Yeah! What the fuck am I reading, bro? What is this? Bro, like, if you want to make some super dark world full of atrocities and oppression and a world and setting that's like all rugged and badass and stuff, you probably shouldn't have your characters in that supposedly dark environment looking like this and doing things like this, literally one chapter after an arc with literal infanticide in it. Like, what is this mangaka doing, bro? You see this? What I'm discussing here is the exact same problem problem I brought it up already, but Killing Bites, the weird edgelord furry manga I was talking about a second ago. Yeah, like I said, this manga only solves most of that piece of junk's problems. But yeah, these two things have one thing alike, and it's the fact that it wants to have it both ways. Like, it wants to have this dark world where horrible things can happen that make for intense moments, but it also wants to have a world where it can show off some sexy furries and hot outfits, ooh woo. And yeah, for the level of dark that this thing wants to be, it just makes for a tonally confusing mess. I'm not gonna lie, the manga just gets even worse from here, awkwardly bunny hopping from one tired anime cliche to the next. After this stupid multi-chapter beach arc things, what happens after that is basically a story arc that dominates the entire rest of this manga, displaying as same as it ever was rival schools arc, featuring boring-ass world building where new characters are introduced who are total randos with no personality whatsoever, that after being defeated by the protagonist's squad, all suddenly get violently murdered for no good reason for more basic bitch shock fuel. Oh yeah, and by the way, did I mention that the only ones who die are the only people with no interesting character design whatsoever, and everyone else lives and survives? What a total coincidence. What a piece of shit. So what I want to know is why? Why such an odd combination of great artistic ability followed by this embarrassingly poor writing? It's almost as if, despite Koichi Shikasa's drawing expertise, he hasn't really had a great opportunity to improve his narrative ability. I mean, yeah, he had a few one-shot type comics before he made this, but according to MAL, he's actually been making a few comics before those too. So, wait, why does he still lack the ability to structure these arcs well? Like what was he working on before? Oh. He used to only make hentai. Oh. Well, that explains pretty much everything now that I think about it. Yeah. Okay, boys. Usually I do not hold back when I'm super harsh and aggressive like this. You know that, right? But at the same time, I'm gonna lighten up on this guy now. Can you really expect a dude who's been making literal smut comics for the past goodness knows how long to suddenly be able to make a properly structured and unique scenario with multiple volumes? The answer is frickin' no. Come on now. Like, you wouldn't expect a part-time McDonald's cashier to cook you a frickin' filet mignon. Oh, and also, just to make sure you know, I am not judging this guy for making spicy stuff. Like, why would I? Come on now. In fact, many of your favorite manga authors out there have actually made fat material themselves. The creator of Kobayashi's Dragon Maid actively makes Shotakon slop as we speak. I wish she didn't, but she does. But yes, back on topic. This manga has genuinely borderline infuriated me on countless occasions with how obnoxiously dumb it gets and how embarrassingly tastelessly handled all of its darker content is, as it tonally whiplashes harder than the elusive samurai. And yet, I still read this manga. I still reread this manga too. Like, I can't deny that that's just how much power this thing holds over me. I still like this manga. Like, for me, it's just a weird roller coaster ride of being annoyed and then being entertained because of the pretty pictures and cool looking characters. Like, even when the story collapses, the visuals still stay strong. Even when the writing gets worse, the designs still stay fun. Like I said, the fact that this manga series is just so generally low quality and poorly handled and just trash to the point where I can only tolerate 3.5 volumes of it is sad, but at the same time, I still can't deny that I still reread what little of this I actually managed to enjoy. And if that's not a guilty pleasure, I don't know what is. And with that being said, I give Kemono Giga a 2 out of 5. And honestly, considering how hard in the paint I just went with why this manga is fundamentally flawed, I'd say a 2 is generous. But I guess that's just how guilty pleasures work. But yeah, that about wraps this up. This is Blacklight Jack signing out. You guys have a good one. We've reached the end of the video, so it's time for the Patreon roll call. My 15 or more supporters are Stormy Knight. My $10 supporters are Phaedra Galaxy, Selena BB, Klutzy Ninja Kitty, Sarnox, Raging Ray, Lizard Teeth, and Foxy Guy. And let's not forget our $5 supporters. They are appreciated just as much as our $10 Patreons. If you'd like to be a part of the credits as well, just catch me on patreon.com/blacklightjack. Thanks for watching, boys. We'll see you next time.